You hear people talk about the economy all the time. But what is the economy exactly? The economy is the flow of money between the people, the companies, and the government in the Cayman Islands. Why is it important to understand the economy? Well, just like the engine of a car, the better we understand the economy, the better we can make it run, and the more prosperous we can become as a community. The first important thing to understand about the economy is that the private sector is the main source of all wealth. Think about it. Most people work for companies in the private sector, both big companies and small businesses. But even if you work for the government, your salary comes from the fees and duties paid to the government by private sector companies and their employees. That's why we call the private sector the prosperity engine that powers our economy and drives the country forward. When business is booming, companies have more money to spend on salaries, bonuses, and promotions. Employees with more money buy more products and services from other businesses. All those people and businesses spending money generates revenue for the government, which pays for important services like education, roads, emergency services, and care for the elderly. So when the private sector is doing well, everyone does well. But when the private sector isn't doing well, like during a recession, the money dries up and everyone suffers. So when you hear people ask, how do we make our country more prosperous? The answer is pretty simple. Grow the economy. After all, you can't get more money from a system that isn't making more money. That's not economics. That's just common sense. In this video series, we're going to take a closer look at our economy to see how we can fuel our prosperity engine and how to make sure everyone benefits. For now, thanks for watching, and remember to share this video with your family and friends so they can learn more about our economic prosperity engine. Here in the Cayman Islands, the private sector is the prosperity engine that drives the country forward. Just like a real engine. The better we understand how it works, the better we can make it run, and the better off we'll be. To help illustrate how our economy works, let's take a step back in time to when there were only a few thousand people living in Cayman. In those days, most people survived by fishing or farming for food. It was a simple, wholesome life, but it was a lot of hard work. Most people bought what they needed from their neighbors. As people bought and sold things, their individual wealth went up or down, but the overall wealth of the country stayed the same. In a simple economy like this, the only way one person could increase their wealth was by reducing someone else's. In order to increase the overall wealth of the country, one of our Caymanian ancestors would have to sell something, a product or service, to someone somewhere else, and bring that money back home. In other words, we would have to export something. In those days, our biggest export was labor. Men worked overseas or on the seas and brought the money home, thereby increasing the total wealth of the country. Although the economy is much bigger and more complex today, these same principles still apply. Every time a company in Cayman sells a product or service to a customer overseas, the overall wealth of the country increases. Once it's here, it flows around the local economy between the government, the people, and the companies and becomes a part of our society's wealth. The two biggest sources of income for our economy today are financial services and tourism, often called the pillars of our economy. Tourists come here and spend their money. So all of the tourism companies like hotels, restaurants, buses, Stingray City Tours that make sure our visitors have a great time are helping to increase the wealth of our country. Just like tourists, clients of financial services firms come here and spend money too. So all of our financial service companies like insurance companies, fund administrators, lawyers, and accountants that facilitate investment transactions for people and companies around the world bring money into the economy and increase the overall wealth. The point is, if we want to increase the prosperity of our country, the best way to do that, in fact, the only way to do that, is to grow the private sector. In particular, the companies at the front lines that bring the wealth here from overseas in the first place. In the next video, we'll talk a little about how money moves around the economy. For now, thanks for watching, and remember to share this video with your family and friends so they can learn more about our economic prosperity engine. In the last episode, we learned about the important role of companies here in Cayman that do business with overseas customers and generate new wealth for the Cayman Islands economy. But what about all the other companies in the Cayman Islands? How do they fit into our prosperity engine? Every business in the Cayman Islands falls into one of three groups, or tiers. Each tier plays a critical role in our economy. The first tier is made up of all the companies that do business with overseas customers and bring money into our economy. Companies in this tier are like the gas tank of our economic prosperity engine. The more we have in the tank, the farther we can go. Although most well-known companies in this tier are in financial services like Butterfield Bank or tourism like the Ritz-Carlton, there are many other well-known Tier 1 companies doing business with overseas customers like Unit Registry, Health City, and all of the companies in Cayman Enterprise City. The second tier of the economy is all the companies that do business with other local companies, like IT and marketing consultants, or companies that sell supplies to bars and restaurants. These companies are also very important because without them, the companies they supply would need to buy their goods and services from overseas. So while companies in Tier 1 bring money into our economy, companies in Tier 2 help keep it here. The third tier is made up of all the companies that provide services to people that live and work in the Cayman Islands. Companies in this tier include supermarkets, dry cleaners, mechanics, gyms, doctors, dentists, architects, house builders, florists, and gardeners. These companies are important sources of employment and business opportunities for our people, and they play a really important role because without them, Cayman wouldn't be a very nice place to live. So to recap, Tier 1 companies do business with customers overseas. Tier 2 companies do business with other companies in Cayman. And Tier 3 companies do business with those who live here. Every company and self-employed contractor in the Cayman Islands falls into one of these three tiers, and they all play an important role in making our nation prosperous, helping bring money into our country, improve our economy, and creating jobs. And without them, the Cayman Islands wouldn't be the great country that it is. Thanks for watching, and remember to share this on social media so we can all help fuel the economic prosperity engine. When companies do well, everyone does well. Not just the business owners, but the employees, other businesses, the government, and even the customers. Seriously, to learn how, let's look at how money flows through a company. When a company sells its goods and services, they receive money, which is called revenue. That money is then split up and used in a number of different ways. Some of the money goes to employees. To keep it simple, we'll call this salaries. Some of the money goes to pay for products and services the company needs to keep running. Those expenses are called overheads. Some of the revenue goes to the government in duties and fees. And finally, any money left over goes to the owners of the business as profit. So no matter what products or services a company provides, it's like a machine that takes in money as revenue and spits money out as salaries, overheads, government fees, and profits. It's really that simple. Every dollar that a company takes in gets turned into one of those four things. Okay, so how does it benefit everyone when companies do well? Let's take a closer look. First, with salaries. Salaries are important for the economy because most people get most of their income from their employment. Next, government fees. In the Cayman Islands, the vast majority of the government's revenue comes from duties and fees paid by businesses. That money goes to pay for important government services like education, emergency services, healthcare, and infrastructure. Then we have overheads. Quite simply, one company's overhead is just another company's revenue. When a hotel needs supplies, they buy them from local suppliers. Those suppliers turn that revenue into salaries, overheads, duties and fees, and if they're lucky, profit. Some people think that business owners make too much money, but the truth is, the average company only makes 7.5 cents in profit for every dollar in sales. And that's assuming they make a profit at all. The other 92.5 cents goes to pay for salaries for staff, overheads that become revenue of other companies, and duties and fees that pay for the government services we need. In order to become successful, most business owners have to work extremely hard and take a lot of risks. If it wasn't for the ability to make a profit, the owner wouldn't have started the business in the first place. And if nobody started any businesses, there would be no jobs for employees, which means no salaries, no overheads to support other businesses, and no money from government fees to pay for our government services. So yeah, when companies do well, everyone does well. In the next video, we'll take a closer look at why countries need economic growth. For now, thanks for watching. And remember to share this video with your family and friends so they can learn more about our economic prosperity engine. Most people want the same basic things in life. They want to be safe, healthy, happy. They want a good job. In a word, people want prosperity. So how can we create more prosperity for Caymanians? Another way to say prosperity is standard of living. There are 3 basic ways to improve the standard of living. First, the government can spend more money on services like healthcare, education, or infrastructure. That would make life better for Caymanians. But it would also cost more money, which means more government fees. So it might bring a better standard of living, but it would also increase the cost of living. The second way to improve living standards would be to reduce the cost of living. A lower cost of living means people have more money to spend on other things. But in a modern economy, for the most part, the cost of living isn't something that the government can directly control. The third way to improve living standards would be to increase salaries. Raising salaries has the same effect as reducing the cost of living, because it gives people more money to spend. If only there was some way we could increase salaries, increase government revenue, and decrease the cost of living all at the same time. There is. It's called economic growth. In the last video, we saw how companies turn revenue into 4 economic outputs, including duties and fees and salaries. So in order to improve government services without increasing anyone's government fees, and at the same time increasing salaries, companies need to make more revenue so they can afford to pay more money in salaries and duties and fees. And that's what economic growth is. Companies making more revenue and turning it into more money in salaries, overheads, government fees, and profits. But wait, what about the cost of living? Is there a way economic growth can reduce the cost of living? Yes. Have you ever wondered why most things cost so much less in the United States? That's because companies there sell a much greater quantity and can therefore afford to make less on each individual sale. Economists call this economies of scale. The fact that a growing economy raises living standards and creates prosperity is one of the few things that all economists agree on. It's what people mean when they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. In the next episode, we'll start looking at how we could help the economy grow. For now, thanks for watching. And remember to share this video with your family and friends so that they can learn more about our economic prosperity engine. So we've already talked about what economic growth means and why it's so important. But how do we achieve economic growth? Well, remember the 3 tiers of the Cayman Islands economy? In a way, each tier is like a separate economy in its own right. They each have different growth drivers and different obstacles to growth. So let's look at each tier and see how we can help them grow. Let's start with Tier 3. Remember, Tier 3 is made up of all the companies that sell products and services to the residents of the Cayman Islands, like Foster's, Kirk's, Hurley's, Scott's Marine, A.L. Thompson's, Cox Lumber, Champion House, Ala Kebab, and so on. So how can we help these companies grow? Let's look at a great example of a Tier 3 company, a hairdressing salon. To increase revenue, the hair salon could spend more money on marketing and win customers that way. More customers means more revenue, right? Right. However, that's not economic growth. Because although more customers would mean more revenue, that's only because another salon's revenue went down. If you could look at the hairdressing sector as a whole, the overall revenue or demand stayed exactly the same. Even if an entrepreneur came along and opened a new salon, that wouldn't be economic growth either, because, again, demand for hairdressing hasn't changed. That doesn't mean having more salons is a bad thing, but it's not economic growth. So the question is really, what would have to happen to increase demand for hairdressing? Well, two things. First, disposable incomes could go up. Disposable income is what people have left over after they've paid for important things like housing and food. When disposable income goes up, people have more money to spend on things like hairdressing. When disposable income goes down, like during a recession, people look for ways to cut back on spending, so they visit hair salons less often. And what could cause disposable income to increase? You guessed it, economic growth. The second way to increase demand would be to increase the population. More people means more customers buying more products and services from Tier 3 businesses like hairdressers. So in that way, population growth actually helps our Tier 3 businesses. Now, not everyone agrees that population growth is a good thing, and that's fine. But because population growth is both a cause and result of economic growth, trying to grow the economy without growing the population is like standing in a bucket and trying to lift yourself up by the handle. It's not gonna get you anywhere. In the next video, we'll look at how Tier 2 companies fit into the economy and how to help them grow. For now, thanks for watching. And remember to share this video with your family and friends so they can learn more about our economic prosperity engine. We've already talked about how to grow the Tier 3 economy. Now, let's look at how to grow the economy in Tier 2. Remember, Tier 2 companies provide goods and services to local companies here in the Cayman Islands. So how can we help these companies grow? Let's look at a great example of a Tier 2 company, a commercial landlord. A commercial landlord owns office buildings and rents out the space to other businesses. What would increase demand for office space? Well, if a company lowers the rent or spends more on advertising, it might win more tenants, but only at the expense of some other landlord losing theirs. That's not economic growth. The only thing that will grow the commercial leasing sector as a whole would be an increase in demand for office space. In other words, new companies starting up or existing companies growing and hiring more staff. No matter what type of Tier 2 company you think about, by definition, its growth depends on the growth of other companies. And again, if a new commercial landlord came along, that wouldn't represent economic growth, because they would just take demand away from all the others. That's not growing the pie, that's just giving everyone a smaller slice. In the next video, we'll look at how to grow the economy in Tier 1, the most important tier of all for our economy. For now, thanks for watching. And remember to share this video with your family and friends so they can learn more about our economic prosperity engine. We've already looked at how to grow Tiers 2 and 3 of our economy. All the companies that provide goods and services to other businesses and residents here in Cayman. To sum it all up, the easiest way to grow the economy in Tiers 2 and 3 is to grow the economy in Tier 1. That's because Tier 1 companies are on the front lines of our economy, doing business with overseas customers, bringing money into the country, and spending it in the local economy. That's why Tier 1 is like the gas tank of our economic prosperity engine. To understand a bit more about Tier 1 companies, let's look at what they have in common. First, unlike companies that do business with customers here in Cayman, international Tier 1 companies don't need to be physically located in the same place as their customers. That's a double-edged sword. Being flexible is what allowed them to come to Cayman in the first place, but it also means, unlike companies in tiers 2 and 3, they can also go somewhere else. Second, these international companies sell services rather than products. That's great for the economy, because service companies need to hire people to deliver their services. That means tier 1 companies create good, quality jobs. Finally, while companies in tiers 2 and 3 are competing against other companies here in Cayman, businesses in tiers 1 compete against other companies all around the world. So while our local rules and regulations give local companies a level playing field, those rules can either be an advantage or disadvantage to the international companies in tier 1. So let's recap. Tier 1 companies are vital to the economy. They could be physically based almost anywhere in the world. They normally sell services, not products. They need to hire people to provide those services, and they compete in international markets against other companies all around the world. Now that we have a better understanding of tier 1 companies, we're in a better position to think of ways we could help the tier 1 economy grow. We'll get to that in the next episode. For now, thanks for watching. And remember to share this video with your family and friends so they can learn more about our economic prosperity engine. We've already seen how tier 1 companies bring money into our economy. Now, let's think about how we could help them grow. The easiest way to grow the tier 1 economy is to help grow the tier 1 companies that are already in Cayman. So, how could we help them do that? Well, we can make it easier for them to hire more people here in Cayman instead of in other locations. That means providing education and training for Caymanians. And if companies can't find them here, we could let them hire people with the experience and qualifications they need from overseas. Some people think we should go the other way and make it harder for tier 1 companies to get work permits. But remember, growing tier 1 companies creates jobs in tiers 2 and 3 and adds to government revenue. And a job held by a work permit holder today can still be earned by a Caymanian in the future. If we can't promise tier 1 companies they'll be able to hire the people they need, they'll just create those jobs somewhere else. And if we make it really difficult, they might just leave altogether. And don't forget, work permit holders pay fees and duties just like you and I. The second way to grow tier 1 companies is to help new companies start up here in Cayman. How could we help these companies get off the ground? Well, the Cayman Islands is one of the few developed countries that doesn't tax a company's profits. Instead, we have a system of flat fees that a company pays whether it's making a profit or a loss. That system works really well for companies making a profit, but it doesn't work well at all for companies making a loss. If we lower the fees for new companies, it would be much easier for a company to start here and get bigger. That's what other countries do, and it works for them. The third way to grow tier 1 is to help an existing company move here from overseas. Moving an entire company from one country to another is risky, and it's a logistical nightmare. We can make it easier by helping them do it. Right now, they're on their own, trying to figure out all the complicated rules in a brand new place. And although most companies around the world could save a lot of money by moving to the Cayman Islands, most of them don't even realize they can. That's why we need to support organizations like Cayman Finance and Cayman Enterprise City that help to attract new tier 1 companies. For now, thanks for watching. And remember to share this video with your family and friends so they could learn more about our economic prosperity engine. Compared to other countries, we're really lucky. Here in Cayman, we already have one of the most successful economies in the Caribbean region. Our private sector generates most of the money government needs so that we don't even need to pay taxes like most people in other countries. Our tier 1 companies use the wealth they bring here to pay salaries to their employees and to buy products and services from our tier 2 companies. Business owners and their employees spend their money on products and services from our tier 3 companies. Everyone, the companies, the owners, and their employees pay fees to our government, which they spend on vital services like healthcare, education, care for the poor, the sick, and the elderly. But our economic chain doesn't end with the government. In fact, it begins with the government. You see, our government creates the conditions that allow our private sector to be successful. Just think, without the courageous politicians and civil servants who created our financial service sector nearly 40 years ago, the Cayman Islands would be very different from the country we know and love today. Today's government plays a vital part in our economy by creating laws and regulations that protect our people, attract new companies in new industry sectors, and allow those already here to grow and become successful. And just because our private sector is already pretty successful doesn't mean we should stop trying to grow the economy. The more our economy grows, the better off we'll be. It really is as simple as that. As your Chamber of Commerce, we know that a thriving economy is not the end goal. The end goal is a society in which our people are safe, happy, and healthy. A community that lives in harmony, a community in which everyone has the opportunity to pursue his or her dreams. A community that stands together to overcome its challenges, instead of being overcome by them. That's a community we can all be proud to be a part of. It's a vision the Chamber of Commerce is committed to. Let's make it happen together. Thanks for watching. And remember to share this video with your family and friends so they can learn more about our economic prosperity engine.